Lee, good morning to you. First and foremost, thank you for joining us. Again, we hope that during this difficult time that you and your family are doing well.
Well, Mike, it's good to be with you again, and thank you for that. And I hope you and everybody in your family is doing well during this very difficult time.
Yes, thankfully we are, and I appreciate that very much. And I want to send early happy Easter wishes to you and yours. Lee, let's first start with your campaign. How have you had to adapt your campaign given the social distancing and limitations on gatherings of people?
Well, it's been a kind of tough time campaign-wise. I really enjoy meeting people. I really enjoy public gatherings. I enjoy parades. I enjoy all the really in-person, shaking hands part of the campaign. It's been a focus of our campaign since we started back in June. That came to a screeching halt, obviously, and the campaign, we really had to shift, and so now it's anything but groups and anything but shaking hands. We've gone to Facebook. We do a Facebook Live every Sunday evening around 7 p.m. We won't have that this Sunday because it's Easter. We've done many emails, phone calls, developing a social strategy here, social media. So we've kind of gone underground and still want to get our message out there to the people of Delaware.
It's got to be tough, though, certainly as well. Not only are you facing the challenge of the fact that it's almost impossible to get out and, as you talk about, shake hands and talk with people and go to events because those are canceled. But at the same time, I guess the question is, Lee, how much is the election in November on the minds of people with this situation? I guess on the one hand, I could see where it would be with all the governmental action that's being taken place. But on the other hand, some people are just looking at trying to get out of this and be well and deal with the politics later. What's been your assessment of where people's minds are at right now?
Yeah, Mike, I agree. I think people's minds should be on what's right in front of them. If people are affected by the virus or their families, certainly that's top of mind, and they should be focusing on that. And also the economic situation of the families here in Delaware. I know many families right now are struggling right now without a job, without an income. They don't know what the future holds for them, and that is the focus of many individuals. But at the same time, we have a president that is leading our country. He's doing, in my opinion, him and his task force are doing one heck of a job. And we have a Congress that is working behind the scenes, the House of Representatives, that during this crisis, they're taking advantage of it, and they want to push their agenda. And insert that in these bills that are designed to help the people that are most hurting out here in our society, and which includes everyday people that have lost their job, and also small businesses which need our help at this time.
Lee, the stimulus package that was passed a couple of weeks ago and the president signed, your thoughts on the package? What did you like? What didn't you like? We went through it pretty stringently here on this program where we know something's needed, but I felt like it was a one-size-fits-all type package that needed to be better tailored. But what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the way the Democrats held the bill up, okay? Most people haven't received their stimulus check yet, their $1,200 check. I don't know anybody that has received that yet. So it's been, they delayed it. Nancy Pelosi in the House delayed it. I think a bill that in this situation where we have an emergency situation in the country, it should have been pretty much cut and dry. It should have been directed directly at people who need the relief and the small businesses in our country that need the relief. The haggling on the Democratic side of what's going to be included, as we know, all the extras in that bill that were put in. I just extremely disappointed in again, what the Democrats are doing. They're holding our country hostage during a time of crisis to insert not only their pet projects, but their agenda into what they can't get passed normally in Congress. They want to put this on the American public in time of a crisis. I think it's, quite frankly, I think it's despicable. I'm glad the president signed the bill. I have many reservations with the extras. I did not want to see that extra spending on top of what's needed for the American people at this time.
Yeah, we had pointed out some of those, of course, monies going to the NEA and the Kennedy Center and more. And in fact, the Kennedy Center still ended up, I believe, furloughing like 250 employees despite the money that they received. Lee, with that as well, we're already hearing about a fourth bill and maybe more. I mean, this is just going to be piled upon in terms of spending. We haven't even allowed the third bill here to really go into effect here right now. I believe that we're supposed to be receiving money beginning next week, at least electronically. Checks may be after that. Most people are electronic these days, or at least a fair amount, I should say. But we haven't even had that go into effect yet. Small businesses are still trying to fill out paperwork online or the old-fashioned way and get funding. They're in some cases still trying to get through on the phone lines. I understand being proactive and looking ahead, but to me, this just looks like, hey, this is going to be as much as we can dole out to buy votes in November. That appears to be the strategy that we're seeing from Washington.
Well, Mike, I agree. And even in these difficult times that we face right now, it's the Congress's responsibility, okay, to make these bills to spend the least amount of money that we possibly can, and direct the money that we do spend into the areas, to the people that really need it. We don't have we have a $23 trillion debt. I guess it's now $25 trillion debt and going up. This phase that we're in of this CARES Act, that should be implemented first, and we need to see how that goes, and then let's work on the next bill and see where we need to adjust, who needs the money more. Let's just take one thing at a time, so we spend the money wisely and make sure it goes to the people and the businesses that we need it to go to.
You know, Lee, and I know this is more on a state level, but a lot of Delaware's economic success over the last couple of years and the additional money that they've had, the surplus that they've had in their budget, have mostly been due to the Trump economy, with cutting taxes, individual income taxes across the board, everybody, corporate income taxes, as you know, and repealing regulation as well. So as the federal government goes, or I should say the federal economy goes, if you will, or actions from the federal government on the economy, so goes Delaware. And yet it's a state in which they did not vote for President Trump. They voted for Hillary Clinton. But now they're going to see where, we've been hearing all the criticism from the left about President Trump, and some even on the economy at times. And yet here we go. We're seeing all these people file for unemployment now. Well, obviously there were a heck of a lot of people that were employed here over the last 3 years. And now maybe they're seeing that. But the concern is that Delaware is going to get hit very hard by this because they just don't have a great private sector.
Well, we're going to come out of this eventually. We're going to win this battle against the virus. In Delaware, as you said, Mike, we weren't in great shape economically before this started. In fact, in the last quarter of 2019, Delaware's economic growth was 0.0%. Not good for any state, and we were predicted to have negative economic growth in 2020. So what it's going to take real leadership and some real imagination to get Delaware out of the doldrums. And with this crisis going forward, I think on every level of government in our state, it's going to take some real leadership and to get our state back on its feet. I don't see it currently with our federally elected officials, and I certainly don't see it on a state with the Democrat-controlled legislature and the governor. Obviously, we're going to really need some strong minds and some thinking here going forward for our state to get the state back on its feet.
7:32 is the time. GOP Delaware congressional candidate Lee Murphy joining me on the Newsmaker line this morning. Lee, let me ask you this. What were your overall thoughts about how the federal government and even the states have decided to go about combating COVID-19? Some say it's overreach. Some say that it was needed, that a lot of deaths have been prevented, even though the numbers have been ratcheted down quite a bit now from the worst case scenario, 2 million. Now we're hearing yesterday about 68,000. What are your general thoughts about how government went about trying to combat this? Was it too much, or is it about right where it needs to be right now?
Well, Mike, it's a good question. I feel that on the federal level, hey, look, this is a situation that we've never faced before in our country, a brand new epidemic, pandemic, and really the president and his task force, I think, overall here have really done a great job. And I think they've got the bull by the horns here. And as you say, the estimates of death and sickness are not what some experts said they would be going forward, thank God. I think on the federal level, the president has done a great job, and I think he will continue to do a great job. I think we've also got a little taste of what the Democrats were advocating here in the presidential primaries, taste of socialism. I think when you look at what the Democrats have done during this crisis, it's to exert a certain amount of control over the population and put through an agenda that they feel is right. The American people obviously don't agree with things like socialism and the Green New Deal. But I think that we've gotten a taste of what that may be like, that socialism is not good for our country. Government control should not infringe on people's rights, our constitutional rights. And I think by here in Delaware, originally they wanted to close the gun shops. That's a perfect example. I mean, the gun shops should be open during this crisis. So I feel that on the presidential level, federal level, a good job. But we've got a taste of what the Democratic Party wanted to put in place, and I think people are noticing that, and they don't want that.
Lee, final question for you. News that came out a couple of days ago with Bernie Sanders dropping out of the race. So Joe Biden now the presumptive Democrat nominee for the presidential election. Your thoughts on Joe Biden, and is he the same Joe Biden today as he was maybe even 15 or 20 years ago?
Well, I've known Joe Biden for over 30 years personally, having been a train conductor for Amtrak all those years, and Joe and I became friends. No, Joe Biden is not the same person he was 30 years ago. He's in no way qualified or equipped to be president of the United States. And I do feel that he being the Democrat presumptive nominee now, I think that will bring a lot of attention to Delaware, and I think the president will obviously come to Delaware and campaign here. As far as my campaign goes, I personally think it's a positive.
You do. Okay. And with that, Lee, we'll wrap things up and just, again, have you tell people when you're doing your Facebook Live sessions and how people can find out more about your candidacy.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to add, Mike, real quick is,
sure.
It's obvious that China is holding us hostage here. They make 90% of the ingredients that are in our life and death drugs that our citizens use in this country. We have to obviously now bring that manufacturing back to the United States. And why can't we bring that drug manufacturing? Why can't we bring that back to Delaware? We're equipped to do it, and we should focus on that. Once this is over, we have to uncouple from China. The drug manufacturing in China has to be brought back here. Let's bring it back to Delaware and stimulate our economy and bring jobs to Delaware. But Facebook Live is Sunday night, usually at 6:30 p.m., not this Sunday because it's Easter, and then, of course, my website is gomurph.com, and people can go there 24/7 and ask me any questions and check out my website.
Excellent. Well, Lee, thank you so much for your time as always. I'm glad you and your family are doing well during this time. And again, we wish you and your family an early happy Easter, and we'll certainly have you back here soon. Thanks so much.
Okay, Mike, happy Easter to everybody, all your listeners. Enjoy.
All right, take care. It's 7:37. News is on the way.